Twitch separately. Hey, we are live. Who wants to watch the YouTube chat? Perfect. I have to edit the name of the... I don't remember how to do this. Give me 1 sec. I think it might be easier for me to do it from my phone, but we'll see. Because otherwise we're going to have the old title. There we go. I could use a big brunch. Okay, I have our Twitch chat up. Pedro or Joey, can you tweet us from BBB Buzz? Or it's also in the WhatsApp. And then we can shoot the shit until 8, and then start the episode then. How's the weather in New York, Brian? Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. Nice. Oh, it's actually been lovely. It's like not too hot yet. So jacket in the morning and then like 70s in the afternoon. But like a light jacket, not ridiculous. Brian, do you know how to spell Sunderland? There you go. You spelled it wrong in the notes for today. No, no worries. I'm editing it. I'm just a friend. A former writer, retired contributor. We are. Yeah, put it in the chat. Put it in the chat right now before you forget. I don't know. I think he's monitoring your live stream, Pedro. Oh, for your sake. Okay, well, we can get it started before my internet craps out. Um, yeah. Well, I can still see if yeah, it's still not working. Yeah, it's in the recording. Everyone else can see it. But let's. Oh no, we have two more minutes. Is there anything that we're not going to discuss that you want to talk about for that's Dortmund related before we get into it? Oh, I didn't even see that. We could do a little Freiburg discussion or Eric Ten Hag. Yep. But he's also gonna have to turn over half the squad. So, he's linked with a move away. I mean, they may be shifting to a back four. Then he doesn't have a natural role. He has 2 years left on his contract. He's at 29. He's not getting like he's probably not going to have the same season he did 2 years ago again, where he was like way over his XG, his expected assist. So like if you can make money on him, there is like a very real argument to be made there. But it also like yeah, it also just depends on if they sell Hincapié. They've already lost Ta. They're gonna lose Verts. They've lost from Pong. So yeah. Who? Yeah, he is very. I think he's very likely to leave. Honestly, yeah, that's pretty reliable. Oh well, we can disregard them and talk about the important team now because it is 8 o'clock. If you guys are ready to go. Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. I'm joined by Pedro, Joey, and Brian for our 100th episode. Thank you guys all for joining us in the live stream or listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. We really appreciate your support. We never would have made it this far without you guys. But yeah, let's get into the episode because we have been doing a live stream for this one. We've already gone through some of the personal stuff, but let's get into the season review. What are the positives and negatives? What did Dortmund do well? And what have we identified as a need for improvement? Brian, I think you volunteered. Yeah, like I kind of disagree with some of the first things Brian said, where like previously the players weren't running, whatever, whatever. Like I think a bigger part of it was just how bad Nuri Shaheen was. Like if you don't coach in pressing triggers, your players aren't going to do the pressing triggers and they're not going to run as much because of that. And if you look at where this team got left by Nuri Shaheen versus where they finished, like even if you include those first couple games where there were some struggles and under Tolberg and not just Kovac, I think that really highlights some of the issues we saw with Joey, where like we hired a guy who was a project manager due to nepotistic reasons, and that's definitely the biggest worry is that the guys that did that with Edin Terzic, the guys that did that with Nuri Shaheen, are still in place. But if they start to appoint like professionals in the meaningful roles, then the club is going to be in a good position. But you also have to remember that like they signed a couple players this season. Like before you look at the winter transfer of Danny Svensson, in the summer, Gross came in at 33. We just lost a year of his prime. How good is he going to be next year? We lost like Garassi. He had his second like campaign where he played as like a regular starter essentially. Second campaign in his career over 2,000 minutes. And had missed less games than he did in a lot of his other campaigns. I think this was probably like the fewest games he's missed in a campaign, even including last year. And so you look at how much we spent on him if you include the signing bonus and the very hefty annual wages, and you start to see that okay, like this is great right now, but like you still need to get your backroom staff working towards a long term project and have that be joined up with the coach they hire. So, like, had they appointed Niko Kovac day one, um, or just a professional, proven coach, and they had then signed those guys that are very much in their peak years or around their peak years, like Gross, then it makes a bit more sense. But like, you're signing these guys and then taking such a massive risk on an unproven coach that concerns me. That like, maybe now we have the proven coach we really believe in the last like 10 games of the season, and you go out and you sign like Ritsu Doan because you miss out on Jobe Bellingham because Sunderland got promoted. We'll talk more about that stuff later. But like, the people that thought up like these transfers with the risky coach, like, they may now bet and double down on some of like the things they did that aren't necessarily like sustainable practices. Like, both of those transfers look very good right now, but like, Niko Kovac after 18 months looks troubling. So like, there's just issues that I think are on the periphery, like that could go wrong. But yeah, it's just you worry with some of the same people in the roles that made the same mistakes. That's fair, and let's talk more about the Shaheen debacle because that's next up on our notes. At what point did each of us realize Dortmund were in hot water, and at what point would each of us cut the cord to get a new coach in? Pedro, let me know. Unfortunately, you're right. Yeah, I mean, two honest answers after Pedro said, like, Pedro started to lose faith after that Madrid game, but I definitely remember arguing with him later in the season that Shaheen just needed a little bit more time. And I was like, no, because I said it was a stretch of 3 games. It was like Mainz, Wolfsburg, and I'm forgetting the third team. And this is when we played Wolfsburg in the Cup. And I was like, he needs to win 2 of the 3 matches. And he did not. And after the Wolfsburg match, I went rogue. I love our supporters. I thanked our supporters, our listeners at the start of this show, and I will do so again now. And I would like to apologize that I may have been a little mean after the Wolfsburg game when people were telling me that the squad was not Europa League level. And I was like, you are blind. Nuri Sahin is the worst coach ever. And people were like, coming back at me with this idea that despite the fact that Nuri Sahin got hired by some nepotism, and that the people making those decisions were bad, they somehow did not see that Nuri Sahin was bad because he was appointed by the bad systems. Everyone has obviously come around on this and seen the truth, but yeah, that I was a little mean after that Wolfsburg game because I just saw, like, obviously some of the second team players came out in the second half or in extra time as substitutions, but I was just looking at the starting 11 of guys that had been run into the ground, and I'm like, okay, you have to win this game. Like, yeah, we're a little beat up with injuries, but like you play the starters, you have to win the game. Otherwise, we're out of the DFB Pokal. At the time, we're not challenging for the Bundesliga. Champions League is like whatever. At that time, and I just saw our starters go out there and not be able to like command a game against a struggling Wolfsburg side, and that really was what got to me. Is like 3 games. Every time, like you guys already touched on it, so I'll just say this quickly. Like he would react to things and change the things like Brian talked about. Like he went from the back 3 to the back 4 to the back 3, and there was never really an understanding of why something was working or it wasn't under Shaheen. But let's get into our Champions League review. How do you guys feel about this season in the Champions League? Because honestly, for me, I don't need to talk too much about the Champions League. We beat the teams we should, and we lost to the teams that were better than us. And so, like, this is kind of what I would have expected from any Borussia Dortmund team in the Champions League, aside from that Bologna match that we lost under Shaheen, I believe. So we've kind of talked about this already, but really quick, do you believe that Dortmund is closer to having an on-pitch identity once again under Niko Kovac? Give me like 30 seconds or less. Joey, you've been quiet. Yeah, I think attacking wise, this team's has like a bit of a identity issue in the final third. Like when we're not playing in transition, we have a really good attack in transition through Adiemi, through Maxi Bayer, and through some technical defenders, whether it's Svensson, Schlotterbeck, Benzabaini, Sula, Anton, like all these guys getting the ball out quickly in transition to guys like Adiemi, I think is very good, but we do have a bit of a consistency issue coming from like our midfield controlling the ball. But I think I agree with you guys. I think when we don't have the ball, we have a bit of that. You guys use the word tenacious, but like we're just attacking the ball. We're constantly putting pressure on the ball. Like we turn the ball over, people know they're supposed to press. They know where to press, and we're constantly like pushing the ball to the weak players in possession for the other team, and that's kind of how we were able to get the better of Leverkusen in the later stages of the season. Obviously, half their players were in Ibiza mentally, if not physically. But let's move on because some of you guys, have already discussed your stars of the week of the season. Pedro mentioning Nico Schlotterbeck, Ali mentioning Kareem Adiemi last week, though he's not here, and Brian discussed Julian Ryerson. And so I have to bring up a different star of the week, and I got to go with Niko Kovac for turning the tables. There's not another player who I think really merits a star aside from maybe like Nico Schlotterbeck. Oh, Pedro said that. So yeah, I think we covered all the guys except for maybe Garasi. I'll leave him potentially for Joey. No spoilers. But yeah, Niko Kovac came in. He changed the identity of the team. He gave us a lot of tactical stability, and he'll be my star of the season. Yeah, 19 goals and assists in 2,100 minutes. It's his first season in Dortmund over 2,000 minutes, which is like the mark of a consistent starter. It's considerably low. A guy like Julian Brandt, who's at like 3,100, it's lower than all of our defenders. And I think it's a bit lower than Garassi's as well. So it's not an incredible amount of minutes, but it is starting consistently throughout the campaign. And you can honestly expect even better next year because he's about to hit 23, which is the age attackers typically break out. So you could be seeing next year under a consistently decent side, even if we're not great, because we were not decent under Nuri Shahin, obviously. Like you could see Kareem Adeyemi being talked about up there with almost any winger in the world if he makes a similar jump that he did this year. But let's get negative. Let's talk about our dud of the season. Already mentioned Ali not on the show, Gio Reyna. Pedro said Marcel Sabitzer, and it'd be hard for me to go in a different direction, honestly. And Brian mentioned Gio Reyna as well. Joey, I'll let you get first pick for dud of the season. Well, I'm also going to pick a manager. I'm going with the manager of the U23s because I love a cop out, and it's Jan Zimmerman. Jan Zimmerman uh, took a significant investment that was made into the Borussia Dortmund second team to get them playing in the third division of German football, and he got them relegated. Uh, Honestly, a big part of this is when Julian Hetver got injured around the winter break, and it kind of exposed the fact that Jan Zimmerman cannot coach an attack in any way, shape, or form. We also saw him start to deploy Kiel Watyen at right wing, and when you deploy a right midfielder at right wing, uh, it may not help the spacing of your side a ton. Kiel Watyen was one of the more productive players, especially considering a lot of his minutes did come with Hetver out injured in terms of goals and assists. Like he still held his own in all fairness to him, but yeah, Jan Zimmerman getting that team relegated, and yeah, you got to be able to coach an attack beyond like a U21 prospect who's supposed to be moving to the top flight in the coming season. But let's move on. Let's talk about our most improved players. So your guys' picks, as voted on our Instagram poll, was Remy Bensebaini with 46% of the vote, 38% of the vote being Kareem Adeyemi, 15% Felix Mecha, and none for Jamie Gittins. Sula also got a shout for most improved. Brian and Pedro, you guys already went through your star and dud of the week, so I haven't heard from you a little bit. Can you tell me who your most improved player is? Yeah, I mean, I just think that's a mistake. Like for me, I would say that Ben Sabaini probably is the most improved player because I literally was getting criticized by my good friend at BVB in DC, Clea. She was telling me like I was being too kind on Ben Sabaini to start the season, and then a couple months in, like no one would have been saying that to me because even under Shaheen, Ben Sabaini was performing very well. I think that Gittins gets treated a bit unfairly in terms of this conversation just because of when his productivity occurred. Like he was scoring a lot from very few chances, and that was not sustainable, especially for a player who was becoming a starter for the first time in his campaign. Like we're talking about Kareem Adeyemi at age like 22, almost 23, cracking 2,000 league minutes for the first, or 2,000 league and Champions League minutes for the first time. Jimmy Gittins did that as well this season, and he had even more minutes. Like Adeyemi was at 2,100. Gittins had 1,776 in the league and another 845 Champions League minutes. So we're talking about like 25, 2,700 minutes. I'm very bad at math. And 14 goal contributions. So a little bit under half a goal contribution per 90. And one of the critiques on him this season before was he's not as good when he starts. And part of that was just the fact he was a literal child. But coming into holding up over a full season, just in terms of being able to play all those minutes, and it wasn't like he was useless. Like he just wasn't getting the same amount of goals. Like this isn't a guy that creates a ton of chances. That's something he needs to work on in his game as he matures. And when you like overperform in one stretch of the season, like if you flip the stretch of the season and in the second half he gets like 10 goal contributions and in the first half he had 4, we're talking about him in a very different way. And so I when I look at like the whole campaign and I'm trying to avoid recency bias, I do look at a guy that like yeah, a big part of it is him improving because of just maturing in terms of his age. But this is a guy that went from being only a super sub to a guy that can actually start for a Champions League level side, and obviously isn't the best when he starts yet. But like he's shown the ability this season, and he hadn't shown that ability before, and that's not a critique of like a 19-year-old, but it is an improvement when he goes from 19 to 20 to kind of show that extra step. But I do get some of what you're saying, Pedro, because he was being talked about in a very good way, and the underlying numbers didn't necessarily get better as the team started playing better, so you could knock him that way. But let's move on to our next topic and discuss our top signing. And given the value, given he's 23, I got to go with Danny Svensson. And I know Brian would love to talk about him, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Uh, yeah. It's like when you talk, it's showing up. Oh, it's showing up on my. Let's see. I have. Oh, I have display capture instead of game capture. I think it is. Sorry.
Good, oh good. Okay, should I go with my signing of the season then?
Oh, they can. They should be able to hear you now. Talk.
Okay.
Okay, cool. No, I'm just gonna go with. I'm just gonna be boring. I'm just gonna go with Sergio Girassi. I think it was a great investment just for how much we paid for him and how much he has given us back. And all those doubts in the beginning of the season, which were fair because he didn't really have a similar season. And having a season like that at 27, 28, you kind of bugs you to see if he's gonna repeat that or if he's gonna uh, underperform his expected goals. But he really is the guy that you see when he's in the box, he's deadly and he's gonna score those important goals for us. Even though there's a few matches that he hasn't played that well, that Barcelona first leg, the 4-0 was pretty bad on his end. He missed some pretty clear chances. He's not the best in build up and supporting his teammates with his passing, but I mean, when you need the guy to score, and that's pretty much why he's there. He does the deeds. So I think it's easy for me to say Girassi.
I mean, I don't want to spend too much more time on Daniel Svensson because for all the reasons that Brian mentioned, I would say that he's my signing of the season as well. But there is one guy that I just think we I think deserves a shout because we haven't talked about him that much tonight, and that's Valdemar Anton. I don't necessarily think that he was the best player at the time of his at the the time of his signing the early matches, but I think Anton deserves a lot of credit for the way that he has stepped up since Nico Schlotterbeck's injury. And he gives me a lot of confidence that this like Anton Schlotterbeck is going to be a good long-term pairing in the central defense. So I do think that Anton deserves some credit for that. Um, yeah, for all the reasons Brian said, especially just the value of Daniel Svensson. That's hard to beat. For I think that the total package is like 6.5, 7 million, 8 million. For yeah, like you said, if a player can come in and start Champions League games. Yeah, really impressed by that. Keel worked his magic.
Like people wanted Matson for 35, and Matson was never going to be a good defender. Like he.
This is being recorded.
Yeah. So yeah, I just made set a cut. So, but I mean, I'm gonna know where the cut is either way. I'm
YouTube,
gonna
we're
let you know
live
where.
again. Twitch, let me see. I may need to restart.
And Eli is back.
I'm so sorry.
Are we
When
still
does this
recording,
thing?
Eli? The
So YouTube's recording
Discord?
everything,
Okay.
and
Okay, cool.
yeah, let me see if our Twitch is back up. Like we, oh, that's actually so fast. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it
All
happens.
good. It's the first time we do it, so it's
Yeah,
okay.
I updated the app right before, and I guess like when I updated it, the slider got brought all the way over to the left for my audio capture for like my app,
Uh-huh.
and that's why you guys were like lower, or you guys were muted to start.
All good.
Ooh, okay.
Now my
Should we pick back up?
yeah. Where were
Okay.
we?
Okay, so I'm just gonna go with my worst signing of the season. And yeah, for me, I think it's gonna be Nuri Sahin. I think I'm gonna be pretty plain and boring, but I think Nuri Sahin. I mean, it was a nice try, and it would be nice if he had worked because we'd have a manager who is identified with the club, knows the club, and if he was successful like Xabi Alonso was with Leverkusen, we would have a top manager for years. But yeah, it was only on our dreams, and even though, as we said before, I think he might even. I mean, I think there is something in there, but he really needs time to figure things out and to make mistakes. And Dortmund was not the place to make experiments. We needed the wins. At that point, we just got into the Champions League final the season before, so we're expecting bigger things than that. And yeah, just a little bit disappointing. And for me, I think he's the clear worst signing of the season.
I'm in the same boat. I think that when it comes to lack of positive impact, I think Shaheen takes the cake with that one. Just kind of, I mean, the season, the situation that he left us in the season, I think it speaks for itself. It speaks more volumes than because I think the listeners also they put Shaheen as one of them, Chukwuemeka as one of them, and Kuto as one of them. But I think when it comes down to the most detrimental impact, like maybe Kuto wasn't as strong as we might have liked throughout the season. Chukwuemeka obviously limited minutes. I think Shaheen 100%. It takes it for me.
Yeah, like Shaheen's the obvious answer, but just to talk about the two players, I think like I've talked about this before, but a lot of our viewers probably haven't heard this because this isn't something I've really harped on a ton. Is Jan Koto the first year? It's the same as Chukwuemeka, and he actually played more minutes because we're still paying the last year of his salary at Man City essentially. So we're paying that plus a loan fee. So we're only paying 5 mil for this year. So if you look at the cost over the total of his contract, next year is when he really needs to step it up. And like there's potential Dortmund sell him on and get a lot of the fee they spent back without having given him any of that higher salary. So like you could be looking at a loss that's very much on par with Chukwuemeka. Whereas Chukwuemeka, we are literally, and Koto could also like play for Dortmund next year and be good. And for Chukwuemeka, it's just different. It's just like taking money and burning it. Because he's shown up, he's been fit for a few weeks, I guess. Here and there. He was supposed to allow Julian Brandt to get some rest so he could play better. And one of the criticisms, even when Brandt was playing well, that it was because when we were down to one match a week, he put in his best work. He was supposed to come in and allow Brandt to get rotated and like replace a guy that was supposed to be one of the worst players in our 11. Supposedly did not end up that way because he didn't rotate really much for Brandt, and when he did, he was fine. Like, was he any better than Gio Reyna off the bench? Maybe. Like, from the start, he was. But like Reyna last year off the bench was better than Chukwuemeka this year. So like I don't see a difference. Like Gio Reyna off the bench even this year was fairly effective. He was much worse than Chukwuemeka when they started or had to play like 60 minutes because there was the match where Chukwuemeka came in like the 30th. So like he could do that a little bit better. But yeah, aside from being able to play over 45 minutes, there's not really a difference between him and Gio Reyna. And with Chukwuemeka, the money's just gone. Whereas with like Jan Koto, when we're talking about a worse signing, like there's the chance that Jan Koto shows the quality he put on display last season for Girona, or that the club gets some money back on that. And they haven't really spent any of it yet because, like I said, He was a backup right back for 5 mil. He was never going to come in and start. You would have liked to see him provide a better rotation option for Julian Ryerson, which he was unable to do. But like the majority of the fee hasn't been spent yet, and like there is a potential of good coming from a guy who's 23. Whereas with a loan signing that we're now trying to extend for another couple weeks for the Club World Cup, the money is gone, and it was not insignificant. Like we spent the same amount on Chukwuemeka and Jan Koto, and Jan Koto played I think over 1,000 minutes this season.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is like I think it's a little unfair to compare Reina and Chukwuemeka because I do think that when it came to impacting a game, like yeah, there's the frustration of him never being fit. That's a separate issue. But when it comes to actually impacting a game, I think Chukwuemeka was far better this season than Gio Reyna was. It's something I talked about, and part of the reason I picked him as my dud is that you basically had Gio Reyna as a 10 as a net neutral when you had Chukwuemeka coming on as a sub and actually impacting games positively, scoring goals, providing assists, breaking a play, creating chances, things we did not see from Gio. So I do want to just put there that I feel like we should temper that comparison a little bit, just because I don't think we saw much of that from Gio. Like yeah, he scored maybe a couple goals or whatever, but like you just didn't see that incisiveness that we've seen from him in past seasons that I've commended him for as well. So I did want to just put that one caveat in there. And the other thing is, if Chukwuemeka was able to stay fit, I do think there is a player there. I think there is a very talented player there. Unfortunately, for me, the one thing that makes it a negative is 100% the fitness. And I don't know what the issue is there necessarily. But that's a separate matter. So
Brian, can I give you a quick fact check? Gio Reyna, three goals and assists in a little over 600 minutes. Carney Chukwuemeka in a little over 300 minutes, 1 goal.
Okay, but I'm talking about his overall play as well. So okay, so fine. So we're talking about goal. Well, I said that Gio Reyna did score a couple goals and all of that. So
Yeah.
fine. But I'm saying, but within the context, especially in the run up to the Champions League football that we had, it's not even just that he was scoring. Chukwuemeka was actually breaking up play, actually creating chances, doing a lot of the things that obviously it's a little bit of a different thing because I don't also consider Chukwuemeka to be a 10 necessarily.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
I just don't. I think that his
a little bit. So
his attacking output, in my opinion, has been greatly overrated.
All right. Agree to disagree, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know we are keeping Joy from telling you which was he were signing, but I have two comments from JL again. He said Couto looked great against Villa in preseason when he wore the white kits, the only time. And I just a quick
That's
comment on
true.
Couto. Yeah, I really think Couto still has a lot of potential, and a guy I really compare him, and I hate to bring the Spurs agenda again, but Pedro Porro, because Porro has also the defensive deficiencies, but I really like Porro, his passing range and the way he can find those pockets of spaces and find those passes between the lines and deliver good crosses. And in this scheme, I think with more time, getting used to the league, to the culture, I think he can bring us some sauce next season. I'm hopeful for him to be a better rotation option to our daring Julian Ryerson. And according to JL as well, Brian, your volume is low. And now, please, Joey, go for it.
Let's see.
I'm better now.
I'm not gonna pick Jan Couto. I think I agree with what all of you said about him. I guess I would say I'm optimistic that Jan Couto will have a better season next season. I think that he had a few extra challenges implementing into this squad. Coming from the Spanish league, I don't think his German or English was really great coming into the Bundesliga, so that's obviously something else that is going to take some time. Then you also mix that with the kind of erratic tactics of Nuri Sahin, and we were in a position where I just feel like we were not getting the best out of this player. But I do think that there's still some pretty high potential there, especially kind of in that right back role. especially to give a player like Julian Ryerson a bit of a break, or if Ryerson is utilized more in the midfield. And I think Jan Kuto has some decent characteristics moving forward on the wing. So I do think there's a good player in there, and I'm optimistic that we'll get the best out of him. Yeah, I mean, kind of what you guys said on Chukwuemeka. Um, that one's a bit tough because it is a loan, but it's not like we are out. The 35 million euro transfer fee and then stuck with a player who's only going to be fit a quarter of the season. Um, so yeah, for the sake of not harping too much on what we've already talked about, my worst signing of the season is the same as my dud of the season, and that is going to be Nuri Sahin, for all of the reasons that I think we've already mentioned in the last hour.
Nuri Sahin did end up costing the club a similar amount of money to Carney Chukwuemeka. Because
more of a detriment, though.
yeah, that's definitely fair. But the payoff to sack Nuri Sahin, I think, was about 4 to 5 million, which is the same as the loan
Money
fee
well
for
spent.
Carney Chukwuemeka.
I mean, yeah.
Makes Chukwuemeka look like signing prime Messi in comparison.
Well burned.
I'm sorry, Brian, what was that?
I said money well burned.
Yeah, well,
Yep. Yes.
let's talk about our hopes for the summer transfer window. So our listeners selected Jobe Bellingham and Ryan Cherky, which are the two guys most commonly linked. But from you guys, I'm going to ban those two names. Who do you want to see most, assuming we don't see those two guys in black and yellow next season?
Easy answer for me. I'll go quick. Keep it nice and short. Victor Froholt. The links I don't think are too strong right now, but we did get linked with him. Apparently, it's us in Frankfurt, and I talked about him a little bit on the previous episode. Just a very complete midfield profile. 19 years old. Would probably come in for a similar fee that Svensson did, somewhere between 5 and 10 million. And yeah, I mean, just an absolute midfield dynamo. Really good in terms of his defensive numbers, is capable of progressing the ball, can play out wide, I guess, too. Though I don't exactly know how much he's played out wide necessarily. I think he's predominantly a central midfielder, and that's what we need more of. I think getting a young profile like that in helps us out a lot. And maybe even if he's not a starter, for example, he could play, behind Jobe or something in terms of taking some minutes off him and then progress to being a starter. But the more I've looked into the player, the more I really would love to see him come in. And yeah, that's my choice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think here, but I don't really have a name because I really into Ryan Cherky and I really wish him to come to Borussia Dortmund, which is not really healthy, I think, because he doesn't come, I'm gonna be very disappointed, but I'm willing to take the risk because I really like him.
Brian,
Not only because I think he's really skillful, but he can play both in the central areas as we are playing right now in a 3-4-2-1, but also play in the right mid and eventually as a right winger. So we have that tactical flexibility that I'm also want to see from Kovac in the season if things don't go right, and something that Eli alluded to previously, that we struggle against low blocks. What would be the answer from Kovac to those low blocks and how we would just pass through them? And I think maybe changing formation, playing a back four with fullbacks that already played in a back four before, and also playing with wingers and guys who can play both ways as central midfielders and also as flankers. I think Turkey would be a perfect fit. And honestly, it can't cross my mind any other name besides him because I don't think that's really healthy, but I think I'm going to stick with Turkey for now. But I'm probably going to do some more research. We're going to do a review at some point during the preseason. So I'll have a better answer for that in the future for sure.
Brian, I just want to thank you again for following the rules when I said we aren't talking about two of the names, and then the first two names that Pedro mentions.
I don't care.
I also feel like once I like a player, I'm like beeline, like yes, kind of like what Pedro's doing with Cherky. And I know a lot of people, I can't fault them, like once you have that player in mind,
Brian.
you're like, all right, let's go for him. But yeah, happy to follow directions, I guess.
Hopefully, Joey does not need blinders like a horse or Pedro. Joey, can you tell me a player you're interested in for the summer?
Well, I do think Ryan Cherky is a good shout for Dortmund. But
It's good.
I'm still gonna take a little bit of a different approach to this one. And number one is that I'm hoping we see. I would love to see Cole Campbell from the U23s brought up, given a bit more of a chance in the senior team. Um, I've been a Dortmund fan a while now. I really like having an American in the Dortmund squad, and I think there is a reasonable likelihood that Gio Reyna moves on this summer. So even having the young Cole Campbell up in the first team, maybe he's the young backup we're looking for, or somebody who can go in and give us a strong 10 or 15 minutes at the end of a match, bring that energy in. So that is one of my hopes, is that Cole Campbell spends more time with the first team. And the second one is, I'm going to the youth team again. It's Kill Watien, or Vetien. I'm probably pronounced that wrong, but I think he's got a lot of potential as a midfielder, and I do think that this one is tough because I would love to see him get more minutes with the first team, but with a lot of the players we're being linked to, with the the abundance of players we do have in the midfield right now, it's hard to imagine that he will get that many minutes next season. So I would almost rather see Kelvin go on a loan somewhere that he will get first team Bundesliga minutes, or just regular first team minutes in one of the big five leagues. But I would be cautious of sending him out on loan to make sure that we don't make a Tom Rotha mistake and like let him go somewhere permanently for too little of money. And I mean, I know Rotha's got the buyback clause next summer, but um, it's a big but.
Yeah,
So that's
well,
I guess those are my hopes.
I would say that a big part of Tom Rotha not staying at Borussia Dortmund was a guy that told Mukoko and Ozchen that they were wasting their time by staying after practice to do additional work. Told Tom Rotha that he didn't really have a role in the first team. Like, I think that you can loan a guy out. Like every other club in the world that doesn't have Nuri Sahin at the helm can loan a guy out and reintegrate them into the first team squad because their coach isn't saying, I hate you, you suck. Um, like, I just think that Watson and Cole Campbell as well. Cole Campbell missed significant time in the second half of the season due to some injuries. He also missed part of preseason with a minor muscle injury. So, like, for Cole Campbell, I'd almost say, like, give him either 6 months playing the fourth division with the second team, let him dominate, let him get every possible minute. And then in the winter, you can reevaluate either integrating him into the first team if there's a need, if there's an injury, or if the minutes are just available because he's that good. Or more likely, I think you loan him into the second tier to a promotion hopeful, make sure he's getting opportunities frequently and getting a ton of second tier minutes under his belt. With Kiel Vatyan, I think you go straight into the second tier with a loan, and I want to see him get 2,000 senior minutes, preferably in midfield. He's played 6, 8, 10, and right wing. He played like 40 minutes this season for Borussia Dortmund and played 6, 8, and 10. So next year for Vatyan, I want whatever position he's envisioned in for Borussia Dortmund to be the position they loan him out, and I want them to have a long discussion with the manager and the sporting department at the club they loan him to and say, we need him to play regularly. We think he's good enough, and we want him to play 8, 6, or 10, whatever the club feels he will be long term, and make sure he gets development in that position. Even if he's splitting time between 6 and 8, I think like that's fine. But yeah, like get him consistent minutes. I don't think either of them are necessarily ready for as many minutes in the Borussia Dortmund first team as I would want for them to play next year in terms of their overall development. Before we talk about some other youth players that I think should start to get on some of your guys' radar, my hope for the summer transfer window is gonna be Enzo Mio. He just scored a brace in the German Cup final. Granted, it's up against Bielefeld, but this guy in the Champions League was one of the best players for Stuttgart. He could have had a few more assists if some of their guys had been a little bit more clinical in front of goal. He's a guy that's shown he can be that runner from midfield. He's shown he can be creative. He can just do a bit of everything. Like, I wouldn't worry about him at 10. I wouldn't worry about him that much as an 8. I might worry about him as an 8 against like some top teams, but I think he could provide you a little bit of extra depth at 8. And he can also play right wing if you go back to a 4-2-3-1. He could even play as a second striker in like kind of a 3 I'm so bad at math. In a 3-5-1-1, he could kind of play underneath a striker in certain ways. So I think he's very versatile. I think he's more versatile. Like, I'd rather play Mio at right wing than Cherky in terms of like long term, just because Cherky lacks the pace. I think he needs to be in a central position a little bit more long term than Mio, who can do more different things, although he lacks the high end creativity. But yeah, those are my guys. And then our hopes for the summer transfer window, our youth and Borussia Dortmund second team players that we want to see more of. So I'm going to give you guys some options. So we have the 15-year-old Musa Kaba playing for the U19s. We have Mathis Albert, who's the young American. He's just 15 years when he made his debut and has been featuring semi-regularly for the U19s. And then we have an older guy, but a guy who dominated when he was fit in the third tier, in Julian Hetver. And then we have Almugera Kabar, who has a ton of minutes as well in the third tier, just 18 years old this season. And then we had a guy who really impressed in preseason in Elias Benkara at center back. So is there any of these guys? We already talked about Campbell and Vatyan, but anyone else you think may be seeing some minutes, seeing a debut with the first team next year?
I mean, I think. Go ahead. I do think that Kabar is a decent shout. We've seen him get a few minutes under Nuri Sahin. Not necessarily the best performances, but I do think that there is some potential there. Gonna be completely honest that, you know, when it comes to some of the other names, I recognize the names from reading, but I have not watched a whole lot of the youth leagues in the last couple of months. And I did want to give a quick shout, though. I think we have a comment that is, or on the YouTube, that it says that if we had 4 Julian Riersons, that we would probably win the league. And I just wanted to say that I agree with that 100%. And that's all I got.
Want to go, Brian?
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't want to cut anyone off again. Not a player that I think will see his debut, but I definitely want to see a little bit more of. Samuele Inacio. I think he's been doing really well for Italy's youth international setup as well. And I think this is a player that has quite a bit of potential, to my understanding. So I definitely want to see a little bit more of him. I don't know if he'd get second team minutes next season because he is 17. So I think that's a bit touch and go. But it does seem like he's developing pretty well considering what I've been hearing, especially in recent weeks. So I mean, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing more of him and seeing how he develops personally.
Yeah, I believe he trained with the first team in the winter break. And yeah, he's a pretty good player. He's played a little bit behind Czerny who I think I've spoken to you about because he has some of the Eastern European heritage you love. But he has been playing, and he is still just 17. So I think that those second team minutes, because now we're in the fourth tier, I think that's very doable for him. Um, and he has been working with new U19 manager Mike Tolberg, so that is a good shout.
Yeah, no, I think I have two shouts actually. I'm gonna agree with Joey. I think Kabar is an excellent shout, and I think with this formation, with his motor and his speed, I think he could thrive in that left wing back row. I think would be the best fit, scheme fit for him, as we are doing right now. So I think it's good to have him as a backup for Svensson and allow Benzabani to be that backup to Schlotterbeck. I'm not sure Benzabani should start when Nico comes back. I prefer Nico at the left side and then have Sula and Anto as the other center backs options in the back three. But my other shout is a guy that I crossed my mind. Sorry, I was just reading on Twitter the other day. I was just checking the videos, just spending some time there, and I crossed with this video of this guy from the U17s from Dortmund called Luke Faringhorst. Number 6, orchestrator, left-footed on the midfield, and I just fell in love as immediately as I was just watching those moments, and I started going for more videos. I wanted to see more of this guy, and I really like his profile, his physical profile, the way he spins and evades pressure as a true orchestrator, regista. And I'm not really sure he would fit necessarily the double pivot that we are playing right now. Sometimes we play single pivot, but mostly it's a double pivot. But I would like him to have some minutes in the near future, of course. But as well, if you guys want to know more about those kind of like young promising players on VB Buzz, we have Charlie, who is our expert on youth football in Borussia Dortmund, and he has a bunch of articles there. So if you guys are interested and want to know more about these players, just go on VB Buzz and check those out.
Well, let's get him into the U19s first, Pedro, before we start talking about debuts.
Come on, man. I don't care about your rules. I'm fine just giving shouts to 17.
No. I'm happy to give him a shout, but we're talking about a debut with a guy that hasn't played U19 football yet. So.
He's
You
gonna
never
be
know.
fine.
Well, the player I'm gonna give a quick shout out is us. Oh my god, I almost said the wrong name. But it's Diallo, who is a Spanish winger who has come over from, I believe, the Las Palmas Academy. We beat Real Madrid to signing him. He's made his debut for the second team already. And I think next year in a lower division, he'll get a ton of minutes there. And I think by the second half of the season, we may be talking about Ousmane Diallo for a first team debut. This is very much a Dortmund winger product, like very dribbly. This is the reputation Dortmund has is built off players like this making their debut. He needs to put on a little bit of muscle, a little bit of pace. This summer it's hard to do both of those things, but he has the dribbling ability, and he just needs to have an extra step on some of these defenders, and he needs to have a little bit more size to kind of hold them off as he's going past them. But yeah, he's already debuted in the third tier, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops. He's about 18, I think, next season, so still very young, still has time, but this is a player we could see play for the first team in the near future, but we'll have to see how he develops. And let's move on to some other news. Gregor Kobel had some rumors about his departure, plans on staying, feels comfortable at Dortmund is the quote. How do we feel about this?
Feel great.
Yeah, lovely.
23.
Just nothing to add. Just please hope that's true. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't have the quote in front of us, but I mean, I can understand Kobel being upset with the rumors of his departure, but his initial comments following the previous match didn't exactly. They opened things up to speculation, which, given the context of everything, of course, Kobel was just happy that we qualified for Champions League. It was their only focus at that time. He probably wasn't really thinking that much about the future yet because he was just focused on winning the remaining Bundesliga games. But yeah, I mean, you know how the rumor mill works. Especially if you don't, when things are interpreted from what you didn't say as opposed to from things that you said, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think we talked about this offline a little bit too. It's like this is a guy who just or helped make sure that we're in Champions League next season. Um, that's what he's focusing on, and like, I get like the annoyance with like getting those questions, like, and his contract isn't up anytime soon anyway. So like, I understand there's speculation prior to that, well, if we don't qualify for Champions League, this, that, and the third. But I mean, this is like there's those other priorities on the day, and I can understand a player getting like annoyed with something like that. Excuse me, and those questions like coming out at that time. It's like the season just ended. Why are you jumping to this? I know it's the media, it's the rumor mill. I get it. I understand it. Yeah, I write too. I get it. But like at the same time, like I think there has to be a level of conscience when you're talking to a player like this in that sort of situation. So don't just jump right into that. Like you can see why they're getting upset. Like it's to me it's I don't know, it's a no brainer. But yeah, if we're talking about him staying, super happy. I've always been a Kobel fan. I've always supported the guy since he joined Dortmund, and I'm very happy to hear that he will be our number one next season.
Yeah, he may have been a little too happy to remember his media training. And like as a Dortmund fan, like did he have a poor season this year? Yes. Do I think he will rebound? Probably, yeah. And so then you're looking at Gregor Kobel probably getting back to his best next season. And if you want to sell him, if he doesn't want to sign a new contract next summer, then hopefully you do it next summer when he has 2 years left on his deal rather than right now when he has 3 years left on his deal, but he's coming off his worst season in a Borussia Dortmund shirt. And so you don't want to sell a guy when he's at his lowest value from a business perspective. And you also like probably want to keep a good player, a guy who's been a leader in the locker room and will continue to be for at the very least the next season, and you can see where you are then. But if someone blows the doors off, I wouldn't be upset, but it would have to be an offer not based on this season, but based off his track record the previous 3 seasons. But let's move on to our next story. Borussia Dortmund sent a rep to Wembley to watch Sunderland's promotion to the English Premier League. They remain in contact with the family. Jobe is expected to make his decision soon. Per Sport One's Julian Schomburg, a deal is basically done barring signature announcement to take place early next week. And then separately from Build earlier today, I saw the rumored fee was 30 million euros. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure if we should be paying 30 million for a guy who never played in first division previously or played with consistency in the first division football, independently of the country we are speaking here. I think it's the same happened with Tottenham. I think we paid 35 million in Archie Gray, and he played in a bunch of positions. The kid was all around, and it's not really his fault why he hasn't developed. But at the same time, and he played the whole season for Leeds at the right back position. So it's not even his primary position. And I mean, he's very talented, but I mean, I think he's just too young for us to be paying. I think 30 mil. I think Dortmund are really confident that he's going to be the next guy to step up and be immediate starter. I was even reading on Build as well that he apparently he's going to have an immediate impact or like a not a leader role, but one of the leading roles within the team as a player and as a technical talent. So maybe it's a way too much of a responsibility to rely on the shoulders of such a young guy who has a lot to develop as well. A good player, but yeah, he's no Jude Bellingham. I mean, I hate to make those kind of comparisons, but they're kind of inevitable. But I mean, if we eventually do sign him, I think we have a really good ball playing midfielder who has okay skills tracking runners and defending and off possession work. And I'm really interested in what he is going to add up extra sauce in this kind of position in the midfield, because he's going to partner up with Mecha, or Pascal Gross is going to go to the bench. Gross has been really good for us by the end of the current season. So yeah, I'm just not sure I would throw a lot of money or put him as our priority target, being that young and putting that much responsibility on him. But yeah, it is what it is, and let's see if he really is gonna show up to that price tag.
I think that's a totally fair take. I mean, 30 million is a lot of money to shell out on a guy who hasn't had any first team football. The one thing that I think gives me a bit of confidence with the potential of this signing is that we have had links with Jobe Bellingham um, since Jude was still a Dortmund player. So this is someone that our scouts have been watching and have been watching consistently over the last few years. They've been watching this kid develop through his teenage years. So in some ways, I'm going to put my confidence in our scouts' confidence that Jobe is the right guy to bring to Dortmund. And I also think that there is an element with Jobe where he may kind of go under the radar a little bit because of how prolific his brother is, because his brother's a Real Madrid star. Everybody knows Jude Bellingham now. So I do think that, there's not just like a point to prove for Jobe, but trying to break out as his own player and not just a player in his brother's footsteps. And I do see that as both a risk and a potential good thing for him in Dortmund, because the name Bellingham is already really recognizable. Fans are going to like him when he arrives, regardless. And I think it puts him in a position to really break out on his own, and make a name for himself as a Dortmund player in a way that maybe his brother at the end of the day wasn't able to, because he took he took the money and went to Real Madrid, when we would have loved to see him stay another year and even become a young captain. So I do think that there could be a good place for Jobe to grow in black and yellow.
Yeah,
I think
I think I agree there 100%. Um, I think Joey. I mean, Joey. I think you said a lot of what I was going to say anyway. I think our scouts have done their homework here. I don't think this is necessarily a player that they're not familiar with. But once again, he is young, and on top of that, he played a pivotal role in the Sunderland side getting promoted from a pretty grueling league. Like, yeah, maybe this isn't a top division or anything like that, but the championship isn't really something to sniff at. That is a grueling league with a lot of games. You are under a lot of pressure because a lot of these clubs, a club like Sunderland, who's historically used to playing in the Premier League, uh, there's a lot of pressure to get back into the Premier League. So the fact that at such a young age of I believe he's 19, he was able to play that pivotal role to help that team get back into that position. I think that speaks in favor of him. And perhaps maybe like if he went into the Premier League, he would have struggled a bit. I think that comes down a little bit to his age. And yeah, not every player can be a Jude Bellingham 100%. But I definitely don't want us to compare him to Jude. I want this to be a completely separate. Like if the signing does go through, I want this to be completely separate. I want us to grade Jobe for Jobe, and not look at what Jude did. I know that they play somewhat similarly. Uh, Obviously, both can play as an 8 and as a 10. I mean, we saw Jude play for us mostly in central midfield, not as an attacking midfielder. But that's what we want Jobe for. We want him to play as an 8, at least in my opinion. And I think he's been able to show that he's capable of doing that. And yeah, maybe that 30 million fee is a little bit inflated, but at the end of the day, if you're buying from a team that just got promoted like to go to the Premier League, I mean, that fee is going to be higher. So, I mean, unfortunately with kind of like the way that the market is right now, there's no way around that. But I still think you're getting good value for that.
I mean, he's played like over 8,000 minutes, I believe, across the last 3 seasons. He is just 19, so like you're talking about a guy who has probably played too many minutes the last 3 seasons. That is a concern. That's a concern when he. That's a much bigger concern though once he turns 25, once he turns 26. But you're not gonna have to deal with those years on his next contract. For me, I'd be a little concerned because his numbers aren't great yet. That you really want to make sure that you get him on a 5-year contract. I do not want a 4-year contract with Jobe Bellingham because I want to make sure that we return his fee through on-field playing value rather than a transfer after he plays for Dortmund. Like I don't want to view this as an investment. I want him to play well for Borussia Dortmund. And I think the first year of his contract, you're probably like Kareem Adeyemi, like some of these younger signings, you're not going to get the value that you're paying for year one. We didn't even get that with his brother. But year two, year three, those years you may get your value back year two, and then year three, you may get surplus value. That is what you're hoping for in a deal like this. And so to me, Jobe Bellingham, especially for 30 million, you need a 5-year contract. Because
Yeah.
the sample size is so big because he's played so many minutes. I think you want him to play like 2,000 minutes next season. I think you want him basically about what like Nemecha has done, which is about like 1,800 league minutes. They can split it 50-50 at that point. And then they split like the Champions League 60-30 in favor of Nemecha, who's not played a ton of minutes in his career. So hopefully like he can stay fit. You allow Jobe Bellingham to not play 3,000 minutes. That should allow his numbers to tick up. And then he can grow into a starting role and not have to play what is he at this season, like 3,700 minutes in the championship. Like no one should be playing that many minutes. That is absurd. But that also goes to show that like yeah, the numbers aren't great, but it's because he's playing nearly 2 seasons worth of football. So I think there's a very good player in there. They play in a very conservative, true English 4-4-2 system, which is not something that traditionally allows midfielders to thrive the way the modern game is played. Because there's only two of them, they have to play with a bit more discipline and they have to balance their positioning. They can't just like constantly run forward because your wide midfielders can't really support out centrally. Like there's a lot of things you can talk about with him, but yeah. Overall, I think there's a very good player there. You want to make sure you get him on a 5-year deal. Otherwise, for me, it's not worth it, especially with a 30 million euro investment.
Yeah, no, and what Eli said, I think it's very right, and I think that's kind of the problem, isn't it? Because we are not expecting him to be that player year one. Of course, he's too young, and he's gonna demand time to adapt to a new league and become the player he eventually has the ceiling and the potential to be, sorry. But when you're making him your priority signing, you want him immediately at the Club World Cup. Aren't you kind of expecting with with the kind of deal just having him and play being that guy immediately? Because when you're making him your priority and you want him right at the Club World Cup, don't you expect him to take the jump now? That's what worries me because I'm not sure he's gonna do that now, and he's not demanded to because he's very young and he needs time to mature. But the way this signing and the amount of money we are paying for him to be our priority kind of sounds like they want him to deliver right now, and I'm not sure he's gonna do it. Hopefully, he does. As Eli said, he's has a lot of potential, but yeah, I think that worries me a little bit in that sense. Or he still needs time to show that he can be that midfielder that's gonna take us to the next level.
Yeah, our next story is about you'll never guess the name. It's Ryan Cherky yet again. Why am I hearing his name again? Because there's another story, this time from Sport 1. He has a choice between Manchester United and a relegation battle or Borussia Dortmund and Champions League football. His preference may have been changed due to no Champions League for Manchester United. Multiple other reports claiming Dortmund will also not get into a bidding war and is unwilling to pay 40 million euros for Cherky. Calcio Mercato has today followed up and reported that Cherky wants to join Dortmund and that is his priority. John Texter will ignore that. Anyway, I'm going to take a bathroom break because I cannot talk about another Ryan Cherky story until he signs for a club. So I'm going to hand it over to Brian. You have hosting duties for the next 5 minutes. That's all you.
Oh boy. I guess I'll start then. I mean, yeah, like at the end of the day, I feel like all of us here would be pretty happy if Ryan Cherky walked through the doors and was wearing a Dortmund jersey. I think that's pretty standard. Um, will it be simple? I don't think so, particularly because of what we saw in the winter. And that's my one concern with this. I understand he's talented. I understand that this is a player that would improve our squad, excuse me, immensely. Um, but at the same time, you're talking about what might or might not be a prolonged saga, and that could put us out in terms of who we might get if we don't get him. So at the end of the day, Texter, if he has multiple offers on the table, he can tell Cherky, listen, yeah, we're happy to let you go, but if he doesn't want us, if he doesn't want him to go to Dortmund, then he's not going to go to Dortmund. No matter how much Cherky might want to, at the end of the day, in that situation, the club will sell to whoever they want to sell to. I hope that we'll be able to put that to the side pending Texter, and a deal can be done because once again this player would very much help us out. But on the flip side of this, you don't want this to be a drawn out, prolonged saga because then you don't want to lose out on the other option. I mean, Eli mentioned Enzo Mio as one. Martin Baturina, which is a big shout in for my corner. I think he's a great player, and I think he'd be a fantastic option for Dortmund as well. And I think Frankfurt are in for him as well. So it seems like Frankfurt and Dortmund would be bidding for all the same damn players. But I feel there are options there. So unless Dortmund can wrap this up quickly, and for example, let's say it is his priority, there's some sort of breakthrough negotiations, and we can really wrap this up as soon as possible. Having it drag out could just be super detrimental for our squad building long term across the summer. Pedro, I'm gonna drop it to you because I know this is your darling and you want to talk about him. So you go next.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be as brief as I can. I think Turkey is that different guy. I think there's issues with him. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it because I think his off-ball work. I think it's even probably more lazy or lazier. I don't know which term is correct in English, but then compared to Brandt, I think Brandt has a better
And that's
off-ball work.
crazy to say.
And that's crazy to say. Exactly, Brandt has not good off-ball work. So, but I think his offensive and creative output just uh, overcome or just makes me ignore that part of his game that I think is perfect for his scheme, and he's gonna immediately upgrade the floor and elevates the ceiling of the team rather than Julian Brandt. And that's why I like him so much. I think he's a better shooter than Julian Brandt. I think he's a better passer. I think he's more creative than Julian Brandt. I think he can associate better with players. I think he's always two steps ahead of every single play. And Brandt is a really good carrier and he's a good passer, but sometimes he feels a little bit erratic and he takes the wrong decision at times, even though I like Brandt very much. And I think Turkey is the kind of guy who knows what he's doing on the offensive third. And I think he's a guy who is worth Dortmund to be, considered as a priority as well. But at the same time, I mean, 40 million, that's a lot of money for a guy with 1 year left on his deal. I mean, we can also just wait how things are going to play it out. But I'm not sure there's going to be that many offers. Allegedly, Man United and Milan are already out of the race because I'm not sure Turkey will be willing to move to two teams who are not been playing European competitions at all. In this season, it's not even like they're playing conference or Europa, they're playing none. So in that sense, I think those two are out of the race from what we know. Of course, more suitors can come, but again, his off-ball work would that affect how teams see him, and especially in the Prem, I'm not sure how would many managers would consider signing him with his lack of discipline off during his out of possession. So in that sense, I'm not sure there's going to be that many suitors for him. So I think we can risk this chess game a little bit longer. But of course, I think it's good that we know that we can have him as soon as possible, so we know uh, if we don't have any more, we have other options on the market that we can go after, as Brian cited a few of them. And with regarding to the price, I think that's too salty, but I'm not sure John Texter as much as he likes to makes Borussia Dortmund's like a lot difficult. I don't know for what reason he doesn't like us or something like. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm not really sure he understands that he doesn't have the all the leverage in the negotiation anymore. I mean, is it only Dortmund that's gonna be on the market for him, and they would be willing to pay that much money for a guy with only 1 year left? Of course, he's just 21, but as I said, we have a few worries with him. But yeah, I feel like Dexter are gonna have to make the sale at some point, because he needs to make the sale, because he Cherky wants to leave. He's only 1 year left on his contract, and Leon needs to have the financial situation sorted before the season starts. So as soon as they get rid of the players they are gonna sell anyway, I think it's not necessarily going to take that long time to get settled. So I think it's a guy that it's worth investing in, and I don't think we're gonna end up going for the 40 million. And if it is, I'm gonna have to make peace with myself, let him go. It's part of the business. I'm gonna fall in love with a lot of other different players, but yeah, I think that's it. I think we shouldn't go for the bidding war, and I'm not sure it's gonna take a go to that stage. But I really like the player, and if we're willing to pay 30 million for a guy 21 years old with that much talent, I think it's worth the risk, honestly.
Yeah, I think Leon
I
technically need the check to hit before the 29th, because I think it needs to be technically on their book. The money needs to be on their books before this season ends. But I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I would caution fans for getting your hopes up on this one, because I do think, just because of our history with Texter, and I mean, I said something similar back in the winter, in that, I'm just not confident that this deal is going to go through, not for any really sporting reasons, but just because, like, the people doing the negotiating um don't really get along very well. That being said, when you look at Manchester United, I'm thinking, what does Man U have to offer Turkey, other than a big paycheck and, a place at the bottom of the Premier League? So I think the question really will come down to what other teams are going to pursue Turkey, and how quickly are they going to pursue him. Because if we do get in a position where, there's three Premier League teams who are offering, 50 to 60 million euros for him, we're not gonna go for him at that point. But then there's also this balance of the player needing to go somewhere that the player wants to go to, and Leon needs the money. So if they can get him off the books when they know he's leaving anyway, if they can get him off the books quickly, then maybe there is a place to try to pursue him before the Club World Cup. But yeah, I mean, like what Pedro was just saying, I would really not want to see Dortmund get into some kind of bidding war, or see this thing drawn out well into the summer, when we could be refocusing those resources on finding a different player who is going to be less expensive and hopefully as impactful, from a different team, different league, not sure. But just given the context of what this Rayan Cherki saga has been with trying to come to Dortmund over the last year, um, I would just caution everyone that, I think there is a reasonable chance that this does not work out. I hope it does, for the record, but we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, John Texter and his Saudi Arabian financial partners don't necessarily respect workers' rights, but hopefully in Cherokee's case, in this time, they do not have an option. Put it that way. But moving on to our next story, Mats Hummels says his departure from Borussia Dortmund leaked to the media by someone who had a grudge on him. Now, I would love to do some speculating about Mats Hummels' like ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, ex-mistresses, and
I
who
think
leaked
there's
it?
another. I think there's another a piece here that we might have missed, and I believe that at least in one of the reports on this that I read, it suggested that it was somebody who worked for the club who is no longer at the club.
Oh, like someone he asked
Yeah.
to get fired. Ooh,
So
that's
I'm
interesting in a different direction, Joey.
it's all just speculation, but the first name that comes to mind for me is Mislintat, is Sven Mislintat. He's
Ooh,
always at the center of drama.
that is a good shout. That is a
Yeah.
good shout. I don't know why I thought Terzic initially, but he's not really the type. I don't think that would do that. But like that was like one of the first names because I didn't think of Mislintat right away. Wait, no, was Mislintat wasn't with the club yet when he left? Was he not?
No, he was. I thought he started like last winter.
I thought he did too. I could be mistaken though.
I think it would be Terzic though, because he was talking
Yeah, I don't
badly
think
to
he was there.
Terzic to his face.
Yeah, I don't think he
I
was
don't
there.
know.
Yeah, it
So
could be
it might
Terzic
actually be
because
Terzic
Could
then,
be
yeah.
Terzic, yeah.
yeah, they didn't get along, and I mean, Hummels was not shy to go to the media and not necessarily just talk trash about Terzic, but he was not afraid to point out what was going on wrong with the team at that stage. I think what was the match that he made an interview saying that's not Dortmund football, that they were just defending, they're not going forward, and that's not that football they should be playing, something like that in those lines. But I think it was during the Champions League campaign or something like that. And then I mean, it would make sense to be Terzic because yeah, I think he was the only option there. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Of course, that is just speculation, so we can't.
Yeah, just
We don't
gossip,
know. We don't know
guys.
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I liked my my fan fiction original fan fiction version a little bit more.
I mean, it could have been an ex-girlfriend. I say I read this, but it was probably from one of these tabloids or the one of these 20 different outlets that's reporting a slightly different version of the same story. So
Uh,
it could have been the ex-girlfriend.
It would be an interesting story, to be fair.
well, Matt almost has plenty of people who it could have been, but let's move on to our next story. So this is from Eduardo Brian. I'm not going to say any
Valdapenas.
names, but someone appears to have.
Valdapenas, that's his name.
No, that's his name.
Oh, it's Hagn.
Yep, that is his name.
The reporter. Okay, so Eduardo Hagen, I guess we'll say, via Polymarket Sport, said Borussia Dortmund are interested in Real Madrid's Victor Valdepenas. Sorry, I was more stuck on the reporter's name.
Okay.
My Spanish is the accent didn't come out, but like that I was not concerned about. But yeah, I've never heard of this guy. Someone fill me in, please?
Me
I was
neither. I
hoping
tried
that.
to search it up. Sorry, Brian. Want to go or should I go first?
No, you go for it. It's fine.
Okay, cool. No, I've searched a little bit on him. Not many stats on him. Also, I even on Transfer Market, there's no really an update on his contract situation and when does it expire exactly. I'm not sure if he's a free agent or they did not have the information to update on the website, so I'm not sure. But yeah, not never really heard of this guy, and yeah, I'm not even sure that's kind of the profile that we need for center back position because we already have the guys from the U19s, U21s who could play that fifth or sixth spot on the squad in the back three. So I think we need more experienced guys or at least maybe like 23, 24 kind of profile of players that would join the squad. But about this guy, yeah, I don't have much insight on him either.
I was hoping that Ali would actually be able to talk about him when I was
Yeah,
doing
oh yeah.
a bit more.
Well, I can talk about him a little bit. I just did a quick Google search. He has a terrible haircut and has been playing for Real Madrid Castilla. He has like frosted tips in the side of his head shaved. I'm not sure that's a very good
Nice.
look,
That's
but
the look for
you know, 18 is a good age to make bad decisions with your hair. So I can't fault him too much there.
See, that's all the insights we have
Yep.
from the search. Yeah, so we don't really have much on him.
My
I-
one
I-
thought was possibly that like if like Bensebaini goes to Marseille, if that ends up being a thing, they look for a player that can play those two positions. This guy is really young. It's kind of like what Pedro said. I don't know if that's the profile we'd be.
I think you had him down as a center back / right back, which would mean he's right footed.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
it's the wrong side, honestly. But I think
that is true. You're right.
I think if his contract's expiring or if it's under like 1 million and he's like not bad, we do need like a fifth center back. Like Nicolas Sula has been rumored to leave, so potentially like maybe we keep Ben Sabaini, we get rid of Sula, clear a little bit of wages. You bring in this guy, he's your fifth choice, right back, center back, whatever, right center back in a back three. Like fine, whatever. Like once we get some preseason tape, we will definitely be able to tell you a little bit more about him. But right now, this is again like via Polymarket Sport. Once this gets to some better journalists, we'll do a bit more research on him. We can put it that way. But Dortmund have in recent years signed a lot of U17, U19 center backs from around the world, including an Italian one whose name I'm forgetting from Sassuolo.
Filippo Mane.
Nope, different one.
Isn't another one?
He got signed from Sampdoria. This one's one of our U19 starters.
Ignacio? No, that's not his name. I forgot. That's fine.
No, he was out of Atalanta.
Inacio was the player that I was talking about. So when we were talking about youth, he's like an attacking mid or second.
Luca Reggiani.
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah.
Yeah. So always looking for value on the youth center back market.
So just to kind of track back a little bit, I wanted to correct something that we mentioned a few minutes ago in the Hummels speculation. My shout for Sven Mislintat being the potential leaker, I'm keeping that one. Because I looked it up because it was driving me crazy when he returned, and it was April 2024. So he would have been there at the end of the season, and then he sacked in February by Ricken this year.
True.
So it could have been him, and I guess
just under the impression that he started working in the summer, but yeah.
And I guess I want to defend Terzic's integrity a little bit because I don't think that he would leak something like that, but maybe you just never know.
I think he was leaking in the summer window. It seemed allegedly. I do not know for sure. But yeah, like
That's why we speculate.
Let's not get sued. That whole conversation was entirely speculation. And like I said, it was fan fiction. Please do not sue us, because that was all unserious. Listen, Mats Hummels is on the live stream right now. He's in there. He's listening. What's up, Mats?
We love you, Mats.
Mats, come back.
We miss you.
Enjoy retirement. I hope you find a wonderful beach on which to lie down, wear your crochet tops, that I cannot afford. But we got anything else to talk about?
We should do a shout for our fantasy Bundesliga because I left that for this. I forgot to put that in the notes, but we should shout who won. Who won?
I gotta pull it back up.
Well, Eli's pulling that back up. Just wanted to say for those of you who have watched this entire stream, thank you, and for all of the supporters and people who have listened over the course of the last couple seasons, especially this last season. Thank you so much.
Big up, you guys.
If we didn't have listeners, then we wouldn't be doing this. So you guys mean a lot to us, and just wanted to give credit where credit is due, because we know this is a long podcast. So even if you are listening to the end right now and have made it to the end, this part's for you. Thank you.
I already gave a shout out to our week 34 winner, Clea, but I finished second in week 34, powering myself into the top 4, surpassing Ryu Sanugi, who held the top spot for actually several weeks in the league. I was then in 4th in the Champions League places. Above me, we have FC Chico 09 in third. Second, we have Edward DC4. And topping the list, we have Pints of Bayer in
The
first.
best name.
It was
Best name.
a 180-point victory. The difference in the last match week. Let's see. Scroll down. These guys did not finish strong. It was very narrow. They were just 6 points apart on that last week. Edward DC4 had the opportunity to take it from him, but he could not finish above me on that last week. Because if he had, could have won the league. But that's it for our Fantasy Bundesliga update. Thank you guys for all participating. And just putting it out there, 3 of the top 5 are BVB in DC members. So if you're in Brooklyn Borussia, if you're in Manhattan Borussia, Seattle Borussia, wherever you are, just know your fan club has less ball knowledge than BVB in DC.
Oh, that's oof. Hard disagree, but I digress. We're not gonna get into that.
I mean, New York City got to watch a game a few weeks ago with Jurgen Klinsmann. Oh, that's exciting, I bet.
That was in our fan club actually. I don't know. I think that was predominantly a Bayern bar that did that. But...
Actually, that would make more sense. Anyway, I was never a biggest fan of Klinsmann myself.
just clarifying that.
Well, you can find Joey's work at bvbbuzz.com. Pedro's work is there as well. Could not recommend their stuff anymore. Brian's work is available at Get German Footy News, something like that. GFN? GGFN. Thank you. There we go. But is there anything else you guys want to plug before we head out?
Yeah, and don't want to plug anything. I just want to give a shout out to JL. He said, I think I deserve an audio producer credit for this dispatch episode. And man, you totally deserve it. Thanks for helping us with the audio.
Yeah, thank you. At the start of the stream, like the first time we streamed, I had my girlfriend check. And today she was on vacation, so gonna throw her under the bus. But no, it's absolutely my fault. I'm very sorry about that. And we will have a version of this episode published on all the audio platforms later this week. Obviously, we're gonna probably have to cut the entire first half because otherwise you would literally just hear me talking to myself, it would seem. But I'm sorry for that again. It's entirely my fault.
Oh, and there's a cat.
That's
all I want to plug. My cat.
Best part of the episode already.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should use that as the plug for like the opening line, like and a cat.
And there's a cat. He's a Dortmund fan too.
Okay, well that'll do it for us. Thank you guys and have a good one.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm staying on the call. I'm gonna stop the stream.